This is Brian, our senior video producer here at Engadget. Like a lot of us, he has trouble falling asleep and staying asleep. The root cause of his issues is very similar to my own, basically an overactive brain. Neither of us can sleep in silence because our inner voice literally will not shut up. For me, this has led to a lifetime of dealing with chronic insomnia, which has at times required medication. There are, of course, differences. Brian is a very light sleeper. He gets up at the slightest noise, even his dog snoring. So it doesn't help that right now there's a construction site right outside his door. I, on the other hand, could probably sleep through Armageddon. Now, I do still wake up in the middle of the night a lot, but that's because of back pain or night terrors. I'm a lot of fun to share a bed with, guys. For the last 2 weeks, we've been testing out Bose's new Sleepbuds 2 in hopes that it will help us get some rest. Now, the paths we ended up taking were slightly different, but we can both report some success. The bigger question is a wearable sound machine ever worth $250? Now, I want to be clear, the Bose Sleepbuds 2 are not headphones. You can't listen to music on them, you can't listen to podcasts on them, and you can't take phone calls with them. Instead, you load sounds from Bose's library onto them, and that's it. And yes, I said load, not stream. The Bluetooth here is no good for streaming audio, and it's pretty damn slow for transferring even the small file sizes we're talking about here. The Sleepbuds are very much a single-use gadget, which means that everything rides on how well it does that one thing. They need to be small enough and comfortable enough to wear all night. They need to block enough noise to keep the non-stop traffic outside at bay, or to at least muffle an obnoxious snorer next to you, but it also needs to let enough in that a smoke alarm will rouse you. And the soundscapes also need to be pleasing, with no obvious seams, and cover a wide range of styles to please a bunch of different tastes. And last, they need to be easy to use, because the last thing anybody wants to do as they're getting ready for some shut-eye is struggle with a buggy or complicated app. So let's go through these things one by one. Are the Sleepbuds 2 comfortable? Yes, with some caveats. The soft touch plastic and anti-friction coating are really great. They're some of the best feeling earbuds I've ever worn, wireless or otherwise. And Brian had few complaints either. These have all the hallmarks of the sort of premium products that Bose has built its name on. The seal even keeps out enough of the environment that you might not even need sounds if all you're trying to do is keep a noisy radiator at bay. Now, my wife is an incredibly light sleeper. If I so much as get up to use the bathroom in the middle of the night, she shoots up like someone is kicked in the front door. So I've tried sleeping with headphones on before, and I just can't do it. But I had no trouble passing right out with the Sleepbuds in. Thing is, as the night drags on, things get a little different. See, Brian's a side sleeper, and while he found the Sleepbuds to be very comfortable in a vacuum, he found that he had to position the pillow just right to avoid pressing them into his ear and making them uncomfortable. I toss and turn a lot while I sleep, and inevitably, every night I would find myself in a position where they were pressing uncomfortably into my head, or they would simply fall out. Brian also had one of the earbuds fall out a few times on him, and we can both confirm that trying to find these tiny white earbuds in your bed while half asleep without glasses on is a surefire way to ruin your night. So for short periods of time in a controlled environment, the Sleepbuds 2 are very comfortable, but in actual use, it's a bit of a mixed bag. And the same is true of the sound selection. It took both me and Brian a few nights to find what would work for us. He preferred the warm static in the noise masking category, whereas I was drawn to the ambient drones of Wanderlust under Tranquilities. The noise masking, naturescapes, and musical selections cover a wide variety of styles. There's 50 of them in total, and they're all pretty seamless. Now, it's pretty obvious that they're audio loops, but you'd be hard-pressed to find the loop point if you were looking for it. Now, personally, I found the naturescapes and noise masking settings to be almost oppressive, and that's despite the fact that I usually sleep with nature sounds on. I'm partial to crickets and thunderstorms. Brian, on the other hand, thought the Tranquilities were a little bit too distracting, and you couldn't see using them for anything other than maybe meditation. And look, I get that you can't please all of the people all of the time, but I like nature sounds, I just don't like these nature sounds. Boardwalk, for instance, sounds less like waves crashing on a beach and more like somebody caught a fraction of a second of a wave and then looped it until it was completely indistinguishable from white noise. Without variety and movement, the naturescapes just don't sound natural. Now, this would be less of an issue if you could simply pump in your own sounds. Often, I like to fire up Headspace before bed and do a wind-down exercise or meditate, but that's not an option with the Sleepbuds 2. I've even created my own sleep sounds from field recordings I've made of storms, crickets, and katydids, and if the Sleepbuds worked like any other Bluetooth headphones, I could simply use those. But you're stuck with what Bose gives you. Now, obviously, you'll need to use the app to browse sounds and load them on the Sleepbuds, and I'm happy to report that it's clean, simple, and functional, but there are some questionable decisions. For one, there's no master list to look through and see what's on your Sleepbuds and remove sounds you don't want. Instead, you have to flip through them one by one, and the only time you're going to be prompted to remove a sound is if you try to load a new one on and have run out of storage. And since there's no streaming of audio, all of the previews happen on your phone, which means you better figure out what you want before you lay down, lest you piss your bedmate off. And lastly, you can't browse sounds to see what's available unless you've taken the Sleepbuds out of their case and connected them to the app. And then there's alerts. The Sleepbuds 2 can ring in your ear if you get a phone call, which I suppose is useful when you're trying to sleep. Personally, I'd prefer maybe alerts from my home security system, or even my alarms. The Bose Sleep app has an alarm feature built in, but I can't simply use my existing phone's alarms. I have to use the ones built into the app. Now, these are all minor inconveniences, but they add up. The problem is, since this is such a niche, single-purpose gadget, there should be zero inconveniences for $250. Sure, the Sleepbuds 2 helped me sleep better, but not much more than Headspace or my own recordings. And Brian had to develop a convoluted system of playing a podcast loud enough that he could hear it over the Sleepbuds in his ears to find something that worked for him. We both agree that the Sleepbuds 2 aren't bad, they're just not great. Now, if you were desperate to block out the outside world completely and struggled every night to fall asleep, then they would be a pretty good investment at $100 or even $150. But a $250 wearable white noise machine basically just screams privilege.